Hey, seconds per frame here with another and also updated tier list. This time including all the characters with the exception of the Reaper, which is broken anyway. First off, as a disclaimer, the characters and items within a tier are no particular order. Also I will go over the characters first, followed by regular items and lastly weapon evolutions. Keep in mind that a character's passive may also influence its effectiveness and is not accounted for in this video. That said, let's get started. Starting off here with characters first, as I said. First off we have Antonio, which is solidly an A tier for me. Even though this one is your starting character, his scaling damage is actually quite strong. As is his weapon, the whip, which may not feel like much at the beginning, but its knockback effect is really useful. It's also one of the few targetable weapons in the game, which is a bonus. The passive is where it's at though, especially if starting out, but also throughout playing at any stage of the game, as bonus damage is what to do. Arca I would put into the balance tier for me, which is to say this balance between good with some downsides. Although the Fire Wand is a strong weapon, it's not one of the best starting weapons. His true strength lies within his cooldown reductions passive, which puts him at the middle of the road for me. Not much to say or complain about here. X-Dash I would put into D tier for effort, but I mean it needs more effort to make it work. D tier doesn't mean it's total trash or something in the context of this tier list. In comparison to other options, X-Dash falls off heavily. For one, his starting weapon, Ebony Wing, is terrible at the beginning of the run. It makes even getting the first couple of levels a pain if you happen to not get any other weapon choices right away. Couple that with very low movement speed and you're in for a ride. Through his high luck stat he has potentially later down the line, but luck is hit or miss. Consider starting him on library and pick up the green gem right away and hope for a decent second weapon. I had great success with him going for pentagram builds, though supplemented by Vandalier, as you already have one out of two birds at the start. Next up is General, which I would also put into B tier. His passive is a true boon for players starting out the game, and it's like a free power-up and applies as such to all projectile weapons, of course. Also one of the only targetable weapons in the game, so that's a bonus. The downside is, well, that's basically it, not much to fawn over. Imelda I would put into solid A tier. She has a great starter weapon with auto-targeting and knockback, which is nice at the beginning especially. And also she got a huge experience advantage throughout any run, especially for those going for level 150 and plus. No real downsides here for me. Now, Mortaccio I would put into the S for slaps tier. Bone is one of the most damaging weapons in the game, even without any evolutions currently. His passive is also just basically the best thing ever. Maximum projectiles trumps most other things in the game right now, in terms of damage at least. Next up is Pascalina, which I would also put into the balance tier. Great weapon, but for a starter it can take a little longer for the earlier kills because of its bounce effect. Though this is one of the best weapons in the game, same as Bone, even without a new evolution currently. A passive, more projectile speed, goes nicely with Rune Tracer, but that is where its usefulness mostly ends. Still, solid enough pick in my book. Next up, Poe, also solid tier for me. Garlic definitely slaps early game, period, but falls off mid game. Quite like Imelda in the level department because of Garlic, but his early experience gain has to be capitalized early on, as it will fall off quickly. Which is usually not a problem, but can be. I got really unlucky on some runs. Most of the time it's a non-issue though, so that's why it's A tier. Bonus points for number 1 no movement challenge character because of Garlic and his increased pickup range. Next up, Porter, also in the B tier. Is a decent pick all around. Lightning Ring has huge potential right now, especially with the new Thunderloop evolution. Couple that with his increased area of effect and you have yourself definitely a fun run. His huge increase to cooldown the first couple of levels is of course to make up for Lightning Ring's randomness in targeting enemies. It has to be capitalized on also to not fall flat in the beginning, which is one of his downsides, but other than that, good choice. Then we have Domario, which I would also put into B tier. Domario slaps with King's Bible, of course, that's his whole shtick basically, but Bible is well, a great item for reasons which I will go into when the item comes up, but as with other characters, you have to get some other weapon going early until Bible starts to shine. After that, his Bible has 100% uptime quite quickly and won't even need the evolution for that effect. Clerici, our first C tier character. Center is a great weapon in general, more on that later, but not for starting a run due to its randomness and only one projectile. His increased AoE at the start is quite fun, I definitely give it that, and it may even be useful in certain other scenarios, but that's about it. As for his passive, more life regeneration and max health, well, quite useful for anyone starting their vampire survivor's journey. It quickly falls off after some upgrades have been bought. So as this tier would imply, useful for newcomers, but it's not worth it in the long run. Quickly followed that by our last character, which is Croci. Additional revives may be useful for those struggling to stay alive for long enough to get strong, but later on the line that is covered by power-ups and from then on mostly gains you some more gold at the end. His starting weapon though, Cross, is a solid one throughout, so all in all you shouldn't have any problems making him work for you. Now going into the regular items. Staying in C tier, we have armor. It's useful enough for new players without power-ups and still missing items. The damage reduction actually helps out, despite what I thought of it in my other video, though this becomes apparent when you reset power-ups and play without them again, then it really starts to shine, at least for a while. Also there's currently no weapon to go along with it for an evolution, so I would say drop it if you have some power-ups going on. Next up we have Bone. The reason why Motashio is so great, at least one of its reasons, has good damage, knockback and a bouncing effect, which helps that as well. In most runs this, as of now, evolutionless weapon will be one of your main DPS weapons. It all around slaps and may also show up rarely for higher characters, which, you know, if that happens, pick it up. Attract Op I would put into B tier. It is a great convenience item, basically. It helps not needing to get as close to your enemies to pick up gems, but on the other hand you may accidentally pick up items on the ground when you don't intend to. Necessary item for new movement runs obviously, but other than that it's totally optional, as gems do not disappear on you. It just helps to pick them up faster, not conveniently, but yeah, like I said, totally optional. Next is Bracer, which I would put into C tier on its own. Faster projectile speed sounds good at first, but if a projectile travels faster, it will surely do more damage, is what you're thinking, right? But yeah, it does, but only for projectiles with a timer on it, basically. For a multitude of items, this just means dealing damage a little quicker, but doesn't do more of it necessarily. Take it for the X evolution and don't worry about the rest, I would say. Next we have Candelabra for A tier. Bigger AoE, most weapons benefit from this by hitting more enemies at once obviously. Useful in most runs, no real downsides here, also needed for X evolution. Clock Lancet I would also put into B tier. It's quite weak at the start, most of the Scream frozen though at max level. Pure safety item. Killing faster with a different weapon achieves the same effects though. Required item for surviving against the Reaper at the end, which is an added benefit. Other than that, just okay. Clover I would put into C tier. Luck is luck is luck is luck. Can prove useful for added chest drops and better and more plentiful pickups, but so does the max power up. But it does make Pentagram better, so there's at least that. Also, it's needed for Cross evolution. Skip the otherwise. Cross, for me, goes into A tier. Decent damage, good knockback to keep you safe, no real downsides. Like and subscribe. Next we have Crown, which goes into D tier for me. Like I said at the beginning, this tier is not for trash items. You have to first invest on this item as much as possible and as quickly as possible to get the most use out of it. For most runs, which do not aim to get to the highest level, it is not needed, and power-ups again cover experience gain as well. Obviously great if coupled with the Melder's passive, otherwise I would recommend to just skip it. Duplicator, solid S tier. More projectiles, what is not to like, you know, what more can you want? Even on its own, a priority pick for most runs, and also now evolves into Thunder Ring. For our next D tier pick, I would put into Ebony Wing and Pichon. You either pick both and fuse them to Vandalier, or you don't. You know, they do decent damage on their own, but are hard to aim mostly. I've used them successfully even before their fusion, but it makes things more difficult. Even if you're growing for the fusion, it takes quite some time to get both to level 8, so definitely keep that in mind. You know, you have to put in the effort first. T-Tome. Solid 8 tier, no downsides here. Firing weapons more often results in more damage, enough said basically. It's a free item on library, and you can take it as a 7th or 8th item there. Also it involves a magic wand. Fire wand is B tier for me. Huge damage, but attacks enemy in a random direction, which is kinda sucky. But really only shines if coupled with other weapons. On its own, you know, it's lacking a little bit, but it does huge damage when it hits. I would say go where it hits and clear some enemies for, you know, added safety. Garlic goes into C tier for me. Slaps early game, definitely, hands down. But as this tier would imply, falls flat after a while. Make use of it by walking into your first enemy waves and level up quickly. They literally can't hurt you. Also has a small knockback effect, which may come in handy every once in a while. Also in this tier, Iron Heart. May allow you to take a couple more hits, but killing faster is preferable. Get it for Evolving Whip of course, but otherwise I would just skip it. Power-ups do basically the same without compromising your damage potential. Also in this tier, again, is Laurel. Limited invincibility sounds great, I know, but so does killing enemies before they even manage to hit you. Totally needed for going against the Reaper, like Clock Lancet, but yeah, has its uses starting out, but from mid-game on I'd suggest getting more damage if your goal is to just win the run. King Spybo for me has only managed to get into B tier in this video. This is an all-time staple item in the game, but it starts off weak, which is its downside. Get a couple of levels going and you will progressively stay safer and safer through its knockback effect though. They're not calling it the lawnmower for nothing, you know. Knife, also B tier. One of the few directly aimable weapons. Decent damage, kill where you need to at the moment. It does get progressively stronger, but it's not as strong as at the start, especially without added projectiles through power-ups. It saved my ass on multiple occasions though, through clearing the space right in front of me once I got surrounded. Lightning Ring, also B tier. Great damage potential, but definitely takes some time to get going. The randomness doesn't help that fact, but it will get there eventually. Pentagram, also D tier. Kills almost everything, but may destroy gems and items, obviously. Leveling it quickly mitigates the fact, but leaves your other weapons weaker instead. Leveling it at the end, and it mostly destroys everything it triggers. Get more luck going to increase your chance for that not to happen though, through Clover and again power-ups. Just keep in mind that, and you can make it work to great effect later in the game though. Don't try to kill the boss at 25 minutes or the Reaper with it, and you're basically golden, because it won't work. Pomerola, also C tier. Actually decent without any power-ups going, as it keeps you alive long enough to get good basically. But once you have some regeneration through power-ups, just take it for the Garlic evolution, skip it otherwise. Rune Tracer, basically Bone's cousin. Not quite the damage potential of Bone, but it's close enough. High damage through its bouncing effect, of course, even without an evolution right now. So solid pick all around. Center Water, I would also slightly downgrade it to B tier. High damage with multiple AoEs, but it takes some time to get there, definitely. Drop circles randomly at first, but provides a circle of death at the end. That's what you're going for. Solid pick all around, even on its own though. Spellbinder for me goes into A tier. Extends the time projectiles stay on your screen to do their magic, thereby increasing damage indirectly. Does not work for all items, of course, but it's a great choice and also needed for King's Bible evolution. Spinach, solid S tier, good all around, scaling damage, and also needing for Firewand evolution. That's it basically. Stone Mask, C tier, more gold, yay. Helps out in your journey to buy every power up, but that's basically it. Also, as with Empty Tome, basically free item on library, where you need to unlock it in the first place by picking it up, of course. Whip goes into A tier, solid damage and knockback where you want it to be. Well, except for up and down, but who cares about that anyway? I won't consider that a real downside, eh? Wings, C tier. Tasty. More movement speed may help slow characters like X-Dash out, but for most characters this easily gets trumped by power-ups. Haven't found a real use for it yet though, so... Same as for Tiragisu, more Revice, meh. As with Crotchy, maybe for those first couple of clutch runs, but other than that you just get the power-up and you're golden. Added bonus is choosing Crotchy with this item and the power up for max revives and gaining more and more gold reviving after the Reaper kills you. So kinda in the same boat as Stone Mask for me. Not to forget X for B tier. On one hand it does decent damage, on the other it's not easy to aim as it moves from top to bottom, hitting multiple enemies along the way though. All in all, it's a decent pick, but mostly for evolution purposes. The only items that are left now are the evolutions. Bloody Tear from here goes into A tier, still solid. Added Life Leech makes this a great sustain weapon with a high chance to crit as well. Next is Death Spiral. Huge AoE damage in a circle, starting from the character. As a side note though, if you're fast enough you can follow the projectiles and they will stay alive as long as they are on the screen. So have fun chasing dozens of scythes around. Heaven's Sword, also decent item, improved cross with more damage. What's not to like about that? Hellfire, also A tier. Improved Fire Wand, it just melts enemies even better. Great damage. Holy Wand, now shoots continuously in comparison to regular wand for even more damage, knockback and therefore even more added safety. Solid choice. 1000 Edge. Like Holy Wand, now fires also continuously, and it's great for melting bosses or quickly clearing an area if you're, running from enemies. I almost forget. Soul Eater goes into C tier for me. Double the sting basically. It's Life Leech to its AoE, which scales by dealing the killing blow to enemies. Sounds great? Well, unfortunately it's not. For that it would need to be able to kill, but with its low DPS other weapons will kill steal like no tomorrow, so yeah, looks cool though. Unholy Vespers, one of the evolutions I would consider S tier, because if you put in the work to get this item and level it up to max, you're basically good, The lawnmower that keeps you safe, basically, is what this is. Through its endlessly circling projectiles, no enemy except the knockback resistance level 25 boss may even touch you, if you stealth still, that is. Damage is also decent enough, and its properties will win you many runs, definitely. Bandolier, well, if you manage to get both birds to max level and level up this item to max as well, you get rewarded with massive amounts of damage in a huge area all around the screen. So it's one of the most damaging items there currently is. Labora I would put into A tier, also one of our recent additions. Even better center water that now moves toward you as well, doing even more damage on the way. Great stuff, great DPS, solid choice. Last but not least, we have our newest addition, which is Thunderloop. Takes Lightning Ring from solid to slapping. Double the amount of strikes for double the amount of pain basically. Great DPS, also cool visuals. Would recommend to take that on one of your runs at least. So yeah, that's basically it. If you found this video helpful, consider leaving a like, and I will see you around in the next episode. Bye bye for now.